1 year ago today, a rare tornado outbreak hit Southeast Louisiana. From St. Charles Parish to the West Bank, even Araby again. Many homes weren't spared in the storm. Some homeowners are still rebuilding a year later. Some homes were destroyed beyond repair. Eleanor Tabone spoke to Gretna residents who say they will never forget what happened that day.
Nick Randazzo remembers the moment that EF2 tornado ripped through.
Walking through the hallway, my partner yelled, "Get in the closet," and I said, "Why?" I heard a loud roar coming, and the next thing I knew, doors were flying.
His adrenaline was pumping as the loud rumbling of that tornado got closer. All of a sudden, he says, a window unit flew out and hit him in the leg.
I can remember it vividly. Never want to go through it again.
365 days later, the house he's lived in for 20 years is still undergoing repairs.
Took the back of the house off, and the wall on the right here, it tilted it out like this, 35, 40 feet.
30% of the back of his house was demolished. The entire back porch destroyed in the storm.
It's like I lost a year of things I might have planned on doing. That was all on the back burner.
Last year's tornado ripped through this small pocket of Gretna, destroying some houses, damaging others. While some chose to rebuild, others didn't. Their house eventually demolished. What's left are these vacant lots.
All this here right here is what I'm still living like this.
Gloria Jefferson was in her upstairs bedroom when she says she heard a noise she'll never forget. The force of that tornado swept her off her feet, and the 78-year-old came tumbling down the stairs.
I came down head first right here. When I got up, I was down. My head was down here and my feet was back up the steps.
The tornado ripped the roof off. So you stay downstairs now, Miss Gloria?
That's where I live at right now.
A year later, her house is still in shambles. The upstairs, unlivable.
My washroom, right there, all this was tore down. All this was tore down. I'm trying to get it back together.
Gloria has lived in her house since 1987. She hopes to never experience anything like what she did on December 14th, 2022. Eleanor Tabone, WWL, Louisiana.
And as Eleanor mentioned, those tornadoes devastated the West Bank. You can see just how much damage was done to people's homes in the monitor behind us.
Yeah, and it was all part of a series of storms that day. Our chief meteorologist, Chris Franklin, he was live on the air for our breaking news coverage for much of the day. And Chris, just how strong were those winds that caused that much damage?
Yeah, well, we did have what we would consider an outbreak with several EF0 and then a higher classified tornadoes in Southeast Louisiana, which doesn't happen very often. The one about the West Bank tornado was eerily similar to what we saw almost 9 months prior to that. But looking back at the 14th of last year, we had the EF2 in St. Charles Parish, of course, the West Bank into Araby, but also had an EF0 near Homa, and then also an EF1 in parts of Tangi. So there weren't just the two that were in the river parishes and West Bank. We had some on both sides of the lake and including the bayou parishes. But the two that did the most damage was our St. Charles Parish tornado. It was an EF2 with winds of 120 miles an hour. The path of it was almost 4¼ miles of distance. 1 fatality with 8 injuries. This was mainly in the afternoon, and it did happen to jump the river. And then our West Bank to Araby tornado with winds of 125 miles an hour. Thankfully, no fatalities from that, but we did have 6 injuries from that storm. Now, ahead of that line of storms that rolled through, we had this warm and very humid air mass. We do not have the same type of scenario for our front that is on the way for this coming Saturday, but definitely a rain chance. We'll talk more about that and increasing winds here in just a few minutes.
All right, Chris, thank you so much. Today, the man